Well, we're here at Davos and we do have with us Uday Kotak. So, Uday, thanks a lot for being with us. Since in Davos now, with 2 years of was total negativity. Now there seems to be a lot of anticipation for the elections. That's at least what I'm picking up.
Yeah, I mean, if I just sit back and look at Davos this year, first on a global scene, this year we're coming into Davos without any major global issue as such. You know, like last year the issue was potential European crisis. 1 year we had a global financial crisis. Then we had Middle East. So we don't have any major global issue at this stage if you look at Davos today from a perspective of the world. And normally my sense is that whenever you have a Davos with any major issue, it is normally a forerunner to something which will happen in the year ahead. So one of the things which is on my mind is, are we going to see something in the next 12 months when you have such a no major global issues Davos? That's from a global point of view. Moving on to an Indian perspective, I think the mood in Davos is less negative, but probably still indifferent. I don't think we have crossed the hump.
Is indifference worse than negativity? Because indifference could mean apathy, and apathy sometimes is the worst thing to happen, because there was apathy towards India for 15 years before, suddenly India everywhere caught on.
I think to a certain extent it is linked to the politics. So once we get the politics out of the way, I think it is then possible to move from a neutral position to a positive position. The current, maybe indifference is a strong word, maybe neutral is a more appropriate word. Not negative, but not positive yet.
How many people have come to you here in Davos and asked you about the events that are taking place back home, and Aam Aadmi Party and Narendra Modi, and what does all of that mean?
I don't think Aam Aadmi Party to the global audience is something which is really factored. It's much more in the Indian DNA because it's a pretty dramatic change. I think the world is more concerned about how we are sort of governing, how are we going to be running our country, what are the ways in which we are going to de-bottleneck ourselves, and how do we move from a country where execution is a huge challenge to making execution the core of who we are.
You know, one of the things that industrialists will always tell you, certainly off camera, is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to do business in India. The tax department is after you, the usual red tape is there, some reasonably crazy decisions have been taken in recent times. Is that really what behind the scenes people are saying? But it's much, much tougher to do business in India now than it even was 4 or 5 years ago.
See, what has happened is you will hear a lot of this from really big business. Big business was able to, in a way, manage the system pretty efficiently for a long period of time. They're suddenly finding it difficult to manage the system, and the system has become, to a certain extent, negative because of all the scams which have been unfolding over time. So a lot of the noise is coming from big business. I don't see the situation as bad in the small and medium parts of India. And there the situation is quite okay.
But for now, the corruption is still there. If anything, the rates have sometimes gone up for the corruption because people say the risk is higher, so we're going to charge you more. So the corruption is still there. The red tape is still there. The poor infrastructure is still there. You are getting an increasingly activist tax department, and it's not just with Indian companies, also foreign companies, not just Vodafone, but Nokia, Shell, you name it. So to that extent, is it tougher now?
See, again, yes, I mean, there are pockets where there are issues, undoubtedly. And the trouble with the Indian system is that very often in large symbolic situations, we don't get it right. And that creates the negative perception, which is getting much more broad-based. But on the ground, if you look at, and I look at it as a good India and a challenging India, a lot of the noise is coming from the challenging India. Leveraged corporates, stuck in infrastructure projects, not moving, used to get the system move earlier. Those are the people making the noise. But on the ground, if you look at small and medium India, business is chugging along, which is why you're getting the 5% growth.
And is that happening more in some states than the others? So is it now increasingly becoming a state?
Undoubtedly. I think there are some states where it is definitely easier to do business. And some states where it is very difficult to do business. For example, right now, doing business in Andhra Pradesh is damn tough because you don't know who is really in charge of the state with the Telangana issue. So there are specific states where it is getting more challenging, but there are parts of the country which are working fine.
All right, so your sense now looking ahead the next few months, weeks, years?
No, my view is, yes, there is a very important event which is May. I have belief that for most of us who've built our careers in India, this too shall pass, and I think we will get an outcome which hopefully will bring stability for the next few years if Indian voter really figures out what he or she wants to do. And I'm not necessarily saying combination A, B or C, but whatever combination it is, if we get some semblance of stability.
So what's the worst case for you?
The worst, from what point of view?
From the electoral point of view.
From the electoral point of view is something which you get a government which has an inability to ensure being in power even for 6 months or 12 months, and uncertainty around it, fiscal situation being stressed, global rating situation. Those are the things you want to avoid.
So basically you don't want a khichdi sarkar.
That's correct.
That's the one thing.
You don't want a very fragmented khichdi sarkar. Khichdi sarkar is a reality. Nobody is getting an absolute majority, but less khichdi in the sarkar.
What do you think? There's a pretty large Indian ministerial delegation that's come this time. What do you think they should be telling the audiences out here? I mean, the audience may well look at them and saying, look, you're likely to be a lame duck. You may not even win the next election. So why should we care what you're saying?
I think, first of all, they must have conviction that whichever government comes, including if their government comes, they believe that there will be a certain continuity in Indian polity and Indian governance. And I don't think that is easy for them to do it right now, because we're just 2 months away from any elections.
All right. Well, Mr. Kotak, thank you so much for talking.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you.